Welcome back to another video. This is a Workbench update, just to show you what I've been up to in the last couple of weeks. The other day I uploaded my 8mm Horus Heresy Mechanicum army, so although they were done in the last 2 weeks, they're not going to be part of this video, just because I did a showcase of them up by themselves. So you can check back to the previous video for that if you want to see them, but they are done, based, ready to go, ready to play. And I've switched gears again. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I showed you that I had painted, or not painted, but I had printed off and painted some Civil War Ironclads for both the Union and the Confederacy. So those are those two there. Since then, I've printed off several more ships, some Ironclads, some, I don't know what they are, steamers, whatever. And I've been working away at that. Now, I've printed them off, primed them, and painted them, and when I was priming them and when I was painting them, they were perfectly fine, but I'll show you here that since they've been sitting around for a few days, they've warped a bit. So all of them have warped in some way, which really annoys the crap out of me. I don't know what to do about that. I've done the trick of boiling the water and stick them in, and they do straighten out, no problem. And I think to myself, great, problem solved. But then a day later, they warp again. So what I tried to do was, I don't know if you can see, but there's a seam along there where I snapped it in half and I glued it again. I glued it back again, and that worked out for a day. But no, it didn't stop. They continue to warp. So I got some of these bases just from Michael's in Canada here, and I'm going to physically have to epoxy them down to their base once I'm not going to use super glue. I'm going to use physically, like, actual epoxy glue. Just because I don't want them to bend. I can't stand them bent. Like, for instance, you can see here on the Cairo here, the top of the ship is, like, warped upwards, which, you know, ugh, God. Anyway, I printed off some more ships. Again, like, I've printed off the Cairo. I'm not sure what this one's called. Again, naval warfare in the American Civil War is not my thing. I've only just recently started to look into it, and that's because of a new rule set that I've discovered, Oak and Iron or something like that, which I want to play on the channel. My wife's really into it, so it's kind of like Star Wars X-Wing, kind of, sort of something like that. Actually, no, I shouldn't say that. It's more like Broadside Emperors of Steel, which is one of my favorite games of all time, which I've also printed off a lot more stuff for. I'm going to start painting that again soon. But essentially, I want to, there's not that many ships in the American Civil War. Like, you don't need a whole bunch. Like, for Hampton Roads, you need like 4 or 5 ships. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Oh, there's my cat. That's what I'm going to be doing for the next few days. I don't need any more ships. I'm just going to be gluing them down to their bases, and I'll show them off next week. Now, as for this, let me slow down. I 3D print a lot of figures, but that doesn't mean that I don't buy a lot of figures. I buy far more figures than I 3D print. I only 3D print the figures that A, are not available in the scale that I want, or B, are too expensive to ship to me. So, for instance, there is a manufacturer that makes amazing metal figures, ships for this range, but by the time I bought, like, let's say I bought all these ships, these like 10 or 11 ships, it would cost me $200-300 plus $50 shipping. And I just can't afford it. I have a 3D printer. The files are available online. They were like $10. You think another $20 in resin, $30. Paint them, ready to go. Plus, if something goes wrong, like for instance, if I screw up, I can just reprint the thing and go again. But that does not mean I would not love to have bought the metal figures from. Can't remember exactly what the name of the company is, but yeah. Secondly, is when you buy the files, they're not all the same scale. They're not all the correct size. And I am a size or scale nut. Everything has to be to scale for me to enjoy it. Years ago, there was a game, was it Star Wars Fleet Battles? I can't remember. You basically got the little booster packs and you open them up and you got a random Star Wars ship inside. And I bought an entire case. There was like 40 boxes in there. And came to my house, gigantic thing. I opened up all the ships, and oh my god, they weren't to scale. The Superstar Destroyer was barely bigger than a calamari cruiser, and I had to pack them all up and I sold them because I just couldn't take it. So that's the kind of like the craziness that I go to. But these files for the American Civil War ships, they're all random sizes, and I had the devil of a time figuring out what size these ships should be. Now, these two ships are in scale to each other. That's fine. They're from the same manufacturer. But I had to guess the scale of this ship next to these ships, this ship next to these ships, and so on and so forth. The Cairo I had to guess the size of, and these little steamers. Like, I have no idea if these steamers are the correct size. I don't even know what they're called, to be honest. But it's a game. They're 3D printed. If I need to redo them, once I find out the proper scale, I'll reprint them. Anyway, this is what I'm up to. Some American Civil War naval. I'm also in painting some American Civil War 10mm figures. Now, these ones here are from Magister Militum. I got them from the UK back maybe 15 years ago. And I'm printing up some bases. I do have some American Civil War figures already painted, and I'm just going to add to the forces because I've decided I really want to refight the Gettysburg July 1st. So me and my wife decided, like, you know what, we'll finish off the armies and we'll refight that battle. We'll do it on YouTube, and maybe we'll have a good time. Who knows? But one of the things about the Magister Militum figures is that their cannons don't look right. I hate the look of their cannons. So I specially ordered in some Pendraken cannons. They look a little bit better. These are the 12-pound Napoleons. I painted up a couple of them, although my lighting in here is terrible. I don't know if you can see that. But yeah, I'm replacing all the Magister Militum cannons with Pendraken, whatever they're called, with their cannons. So I'm currently doing that. You'll see that next week. Next thing I'm doing is I'm painting up some Conquest. What's it called? Conquest. I'll show you a box. This stuff here, Last Argument of Kings. So these are essentially, it's a rank and flank game. I'm sure you've probably heard of it already, but I'm painting up my 2 starter sets that I've had for them. I've had them for a long time. It was an amazing deal, like $65 Canadian, and I got a whole starter army, so I bought 2 of them, because why not? And they've sat around, they've just sat around just doing nothing. So I'm just starting to paint them, and I've decided to go with the cheapest, quickest, crappiest way possible. I'm not going to put any effort into them. I'm just going to paint them in contrast paints and hope for the best. So some metallic, some contrast paint. Looks brutal, but looks terrible, but all together in big blocks like they're supposed to be, they actually look fairly decent. So I've done some 100 Kingdoms. There's the crossbowmen that come in that set. I also bought some of the, I don't know, whatever these are, the specialty units. Starting to work on the flag a bit. A Steel Legion? I can't remember what these are called. Something like that. A Steel Legion, or I can't remember. Anyway, those guys, almost finished the Priest, which I put a bit more effort into, the character models. I have the monster thing, whatever this thing's called. Oh my god. I cannot remember the name of this stupid thing. Anyway, this big creepy looking bug beetle thing. I painted him in contrast paint, and I think that looks okay. Like, what the hell? Like, what do I care? I decided, well, actually, I'll get back to that in a second. I'll show you the last one that I have painted, whatever this thing is. Now, when there's grass on here and I'm done, it'll look a little different. It looks a little too creamy at the moment, but it'll be different when it's finished. So I'm doing those, and I've also finished a true scale Terminator squad for the Blood Angels. Now, I haven't decaled them yet. They're not, or based them, so they're not 100% done, but the painting is finished on them. And I physically painted 10, a squad of 10. Just get them all out here on screen so they can get some screen time. Now, I already have a Blood Angels army, which eventually I'll show you guys, but these are true scale Terminators. And if I grab a regular Terminator, let's see. If I grab a regular Terminator, here's a regular Terminator, not painted. This is from the Space Hulk box set. If I get his compatriot, you can see the size difference. Now these are next to regular Marines and Primaris Marines. These look good. These look like what they're supposed to look. And it goes back to what I said earlier about being a scale nut. I've always hated the scale of the Space Marines. Doesn't mean I don't love them, but I just hate the scale. So I've decided to redo the Space Hulk set, the Space Hulk game, all of their Terminators in true scale. So I only need 12. I physically have 10 here done. I have all the bog standard dudes. I just need a librarian and a heavy flamer, and then I have the entire set painted. And I'm going to do my FDM printer is going to be printing off the Space Hulk tiles in true scale like this, and eventually maybe this time next year I'll be able to do a Space Hulk battle report. If I could just ramble on for a minute here. Space Hulk was the very first war game I ever got. I got it for Christmas one year when I was like 7, and I loved it. It had little plastic doors. It had those little stubby Terminators. Oh man, I love that game. And Space Hulk's always been in my heart. And it's the reason why I even play 40k or 30k. It's basically what got me started in sci-fi or in wargaming in general. And I've always wanted to do Space Hulk in a true scale format, and I'm going to do it. So the Terminators are done. The Gene Stealers don't really need to be changed. The ones that come in the box, which I have underneath my table here, they'll do. And the only thing that I want to do is make a 3D version of the tiles, which I'm currently working on as we speak. So look forward to that. I'm notoriously good at painting figures and getting through the figures just like that. But when it comes to terrain, I don't know, I just can't do it. So the figures will be done probably by the end of the month, and the terrain will probably take the next 10 years. But hopefully not. Anyway, that's a long ramble for no reason. The last thing I'm going to talk about is why I use contrast paint on these things a lot. I feel like I need to explain. Me and my wife, we've been dragging out all my boxes of stuff from underneath the table in the cupboards, trying to figure out like what do I have. We want to put my projects into projects that I finished, projects that need finishing, hence the 10mm ACW stuff, and projects that I bought that I haven't even started. And we counted them up, and I have 117 painted armies for various systems. That's like Warhammer, Song of Ice and Fire, Horus Heresy, Battlefleet Gothic, Adeptus Titanicus, 10mm American War of Independence, 10mm American Civil War. I've got so much stuff. That's the ones that are completed, that don't need any work, that are basically good to go. I just need to get them on the table and play with them. Then I have 62 projects that I've purchased that are sitting around with no paint. A lot of them don't even have the saran wrap taken off them. Like for instance, I have I bought the new Warlord Games Epic Napoleonic stuff. I bought those 2 starter sets. They're still sitting underneath the table, not touched. And then I have 25 armies that I started to paint that I just didn't finish to paint. I.e., there's an example here of an Imperial Roman for the what's it called? They're Victrix models, but they're the early Imperial Roman style. Though I started a whole bunch of them, never finished. So they're going to get, I got to get working on them. There's so many, I can't even go through them all. But I've decided that I'm never in my lifetime going to be able to paint everything and get everything played with. I mean, just the painted stuff, I could play one battle report per week or one battle per week, and it would take me over 2 years to play everything just once. And if I finished everything and painted everything, and it would take me like 5 or 6 years to play everything, but it would also take me another 5 or 6 years to paint everything. So I'm not going to spend 12 years messing around trying to get every single, button and face and eye. I'm not going to paint the eyes. I'm just going to use contrast paints for all of the figures that I'm not in love with. So for instance, if you're painting American Civil War, I mean, I have a really great interest in that. I love reading the history on that, so I'll paint them in contrast to the bog standard figures. But when it comes to the commanders like Meade, Reynolds, Lee, Hooker, all those guys, I'm going to paint them physically by hand and take a lot more time. So for instance, with this project here, this Conquest Argument of Kings, or Last Argument of Kings, the character figures are going to get a few hours each. But the bog standard dudes, these are going to get slapped on in 10 minutes. And I think that's the only way I'm going to get this stuff done. So, word of warning, expect my painting standards to just plummet. Anyway, I've rambled on for 15 minutes about absolutely nothing. But essentially what I'm working on is 10mm ACW, 32mm Conquest Lots Argument of Kings, some essentially 3mm American Civil War Naval, and some Space Hulk. And we'll see you again in a couple of weeks with another Workbench video. This wasn't a whole lot, but again, I did not want to show the Mechanicum that I did in the last 2 weeks in here as well, because they have their own video. But include them in this pile, and that's what I've gotten done in the last 2 weeks. Anyway, I'm very sorry for harping on for so long, but we'll talk again soon.